Hello and welcome to Pro Modeler. This month we're going to be building the Revell Eurofighter Typhoon and using the Edard photo-etch set. It's number 49367. There's a nice little detail set in there, and it's the coloured one as well, so it's got the coloured cockpit for this one. Relatively one of the newer kits that Revell brought out and one of their nicer ones. We just get that. Screws up. Unfortunately, with all the Revell kits, they come in those horrible sort of open up boxes like that where you can't use them as trays. But just looking at the kit, as I say, it's the new breed of kit that I say anyway. Very nice recessed panel lines, great detailing, goes together very, very well. If you're building it straight out of the box, you'll have no real problems. There's a couple of nasty seams and that, but even the cockpit area itself, although quite basic, it's good enough. You could get away with using that one. One of the great things about it, as you see here, is the weapons load. You get lots and lots of everything. Okay, so we're starting on the cockpit area, and because we've got this coloured photo etch parts to go onto it, we've got the seat parts all cut out and sorted out. Now, looking at the instructions here, it tells you which bits to sand off and to remove, and obviously there is moulded belts, harnesses on the actual ejector seat. So we've sanded all of those off to make them plain, so we've got a nice basic surface to go on. Because these parts are all coloured, what we'll have to do is paint it all first, then stick them on. Obviously, if we do it the other way around, we're going to end up painting the nice coloured parts. The tub itself, I've done it here. If I bring you in a little bit, as you can see, I've sanded off all the detail on this side of the panel, and I've still got the other side to do, and then that way it's a nice flat area for the new piece of the coloured photo etch, which will actually stick on it just like that, and we'll go in there like that. And also I've done the same on the instrument panel itself. I removed all the raised detail, so it's all got nice bits to stick onto. So what I'm going to do now is just go around and sand all these other bits off, so we're all nice and flush, and then we can get in there and start some paint on it, ready for the photo etch parts to be stuck to it. Okay, so now it's time to paint the cockpit. I'm just testing a few colours here. I'm just blowing through some other ones. Because obviously the cockpit of modern RAF aircraft is Admiralty Grey. I haven't got any Admiralty Grey, so that would be your colour to go for. But what I've actually done is just mixed a little bit of pale grey bluey with a bit of barley grey, and your numbers for that one is Valera Model Air, the black top ones that we've got here. Is number 46 and 51, 50-50 mix of each, because obviously I need to colour match them to the photo etch coloured set, otherwise it's going to look very odd when it comes off, so that's why we're doing it like that. This is what I found to be quite a close match to the two. I've already got one coat on there, so this is just the second one going in. We'll just make sure it's still dry. That one. So we're just blowing in those cockpit areas just like that, and the same we're going to do on the tub as well. Just get that colour. Quite a nice thick heavy coat, because obviously where we've sanded and that, it'll take care of any little joints, and obviously if you put this stuff down heavy and quite thick, it'll give you quite a nice glossy type of finish, which is what we want really in there, so it's all nice. So we just let those bits dry, and then we can get the first of the photo etch parts onto the cockpit. I'm going to do the same with the panel. I'm going to spray the panel as well, so the background colour is all the same and is all care, and then when we get the other parts obviously stuck to it, it should hopefully all marry up and be the same. Okay, one little thing I'm going to show you in this particular build we're going to do slightly different, is using a super glue. Like, I've got a rocket which has got basically a 10-second sort of bonding time, but obviously those don't mean anything. If it's really thick glue, it's going to take a bit longer to dry and things like that. I'm not going to build the entire thing with it, but what I'm going to show you is using it as a filler. I've got a small bit of glue down there at the moment, so we're just going to line up these two on there. Okay, we're going to push down slightly on there, and the glue is going to push out of the sides. Then taking some talcum powder, anything you like, obviously we've got imperial leather here. Alright, stick a bit in your hand, just like this, and then the way I do it is just literally sprinkle it on the actual joint. Whoops. Hopefully not doing that. Okay, it's a bit a funny way to do it here, but we're just going to sprinkle it on the joint and push it on the actual joint and tap it into place. And obviously it is a bit of a tight squeeze to get it into this particular joint. But there we go. So if I just put a bit of a puddle here, nothing else, it's going to smell lovely. Now, why are we using talcum powder. There we go, just tap that in the groove. Now the filler itself, using it as super glue as a filler itself, it can be very, very tough. It dries extremely hard, harder than obviously the plastic, harder than the resin and everywhere else. By using a talcum powder, like so, it will just help, one, to fill the gap because it goes like a cement if you like, and secondly it also will help the actual drying time. It will speed it up because obviously it's sucking the moisture out of the super glue. And the third thing it will do is help to sand it because it's not going to be quite as hard as it would be if it was neat. So all we're going to do is sprinkle it on. Now you could use flour for doing this and other things as well. I've used flour in the past, but talcum powder, because it is just literally so fine, it just goes in there and dries on there very well. Now you could use a kicker. Obviously a bit of a problem with this one is actually getting your hand up inside there. So if we just use a cocktail stick as we're doing here, if I get the angle, and we're just making sure it's all dry now across those seams and filling in just like that. And obviously it's going to take a bit of time to dry as well, just like so. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to leave that to go hard totally on its own. Okay, so we've let it dry off. It's basically all dry. Now you don't have to let it totally dry. You can get in there because obviously the dusting action as you're sanding will refill as you go. So that's a nice little technique. Obviously you're going to need small files. This is a particularly nasty area to get into because obviously it's a tube. But basically you get your file in there and just start sanding away as you would normally. Now you will notice it sands quite easily, and that's because of the talcum powder. If you didn't have the talcum powder or your flour or whatever you're using in there, it would be quite a hard surface, and certainly you would sand more with the plastic than you would the actual glue itself, the actual filler as we've used it ourselves. Good things about doing it this way: one, you don't get any shrinkage. The filler sets with the super glue like this and goes completely rock hard, so you won't have any troubles with that. So there we go. Once we've got it, most of it out like that, and you're all sort of roughly happy and you've got your file in there as best as you can. You can use hard files, like here I've got a sort of semi-curved one, just to help scrape out perhaps some areas in there. Obviously don't put a flat file in there, otherwise you're going to end up with a situation where you're going to have right angles in there. But there we go, we'll just pop that in there like this to get it in there. But you will notice it does sand quite easily, and that is literally your talcum powder. If you're not using talc, it'll be a nightmare. Okay, so we're in the coarse side of the file, and obviously what you can do, just to give a bit of leverage, if you put a metal file on the back of your wooden or your cardboard type file, make sure you push down. It will help push the front part in and dig and do its work. Then if you're going from the back as well, just like this, just make sure that metal file doesn't slip off, because if it slips off it's going to end up digging in. So there we go, that's that one done. And then what I've got here is a sanding sponge, you know, the big ones we use. I've cut it in a lump off and then into little strips, little sticks like this, and then that way it helps us get in. So we can just, same thing again, if you wanted to, you can put the flat, your file, your metal one behind it to give it some grip. And this is great for doing air intakes. F16's nightmare. Even the Tamiya, which is a lovely kit as it is, you need to do this really, otherwise you end up with a seam, and this is just the same way as I do it on that. If you wet it a little bit, it will just clean it through, give it a bit of bite. And there we go. I don't know how you're going to actually be able to get see this on film. But if we can see there, you can see the join, but don't forget the super glue is clear, so it's going to appear to be that sort of thing. But as you see, it was quite a nasty gap in there, and now it's totally gone. What I'll do is I'll get a bit of acrylic paint and we'll paint it on there, and then you can see it afterwards. But that's the basics of filling with super glue. You can stick the part like this way, we let it squash out in with the talcum powder on there, let it dry and sand it off. just like that. Very, very straightforward, very simple. And so what I'll do now, I'll get a bit of grey paint, which needs a bit of a shake, and we'll just paint a little bit just down on the inside there, just to see what we've got, and hopefully it'll come through very, very nicely. And we can see exactly what's going on. I've already done the other side, so we'll just do the same on the other side. I'll just let that dry off a moment, and then we'll come back in a minute and have a look at that and just see what it was like. Okay, so we've gone on with a few little bits. As we can see, we've got the air intake here. If I pull you in a bit closer, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this focus, but it's basically, we're all seamless on the inside, and that's the one that everyone's going to notice and look for, and obviously this front part added. What I've done, given it a good coat of hand painted, just a bit of grey primer really, to sort of, you know, see if we've got any bits we need to take care of. But obviously I think we're fine with that one, so we've got no problem, so we can leave that to totally dry off. Cockpit's totally dry. In the meantime, I've just put a few little things together as I was just waiting for things like I put the wheels together, halves together, the actual activators for the flapper-ons at the back, I've done those together, and also I've installed the main wheel well into the actual underside of the actual fuselage there, so that's all done in the wing set, and that's just in there. Very straightforward together, two halves together, in we go, and then put that in. That only goes in one way, so you really can't get it wrong. And also the other thing we've done is open up the holes. Now we're going to do the FGR4 type. Now the thing is, it does actually have 4 pylons on the wings. You have the sort of the 4 sets. Some of them still have 3. The front pylon here that goes in front of the actual main gear well, the trouble is it's not very nicely done. It is available in the kit, you can put it on, but it's the wrong size and you have to cut it down. So it's just a little thing to look after for that. So we're not going to bother putting that in for the moment. Right, working with PE, there's actually a full tutorial on that one, but we're going to run through it again with this one because it's the coloured set, and we can go through it like that. Other things we're going to be using this time is gator glue. It's a PVA glue basically, but the great thing is with it, normally we would use a CA glue like this. You pop a little bit on, perhaps with a cocktail stick, and then the next thing you know, you go to move it and it grips. You know, anyone who's used it before, you'll know that's the type of thing. And once it's stuck there, when you try and pull it off to get it off and put it in the right place, it bends and then it's not flat, and oh, it just goes on and on and on. And before you know it, you've got a wrinkled up mess. So it's just as easy to sort of do it by hand. So there we go, that's that bit all sorted and done and ready to start with. Have your instructions nice and close so you can follow them through. We've got them obviously here. Best way to get parts off, you'll get some people who will put down tape on the bottom. I'm not that worried about it. Usually I use a knife onto the cutting mat, keeping it flat and just nicking it off. Obviously a sharp one is pretty, you know, important. So if you are using, like I do, disposable ones, nick yourself off to get yourself a nice new blade out and go through like that. It is pre-coloured, so it really is just a case of plonking them straight onto how it goes. So if I run through, we're doing the main set here. If you haven't used it before, they're all numbered as well, which will coincide to the numbers are actually on your sheet, so you're just going to do the same thing. Obviously we've already said we've removed all the details, so it's got a nice flat surface to go onto. So we'll start with a nice one to look at. We're going to put on the actual side panel, so keeping the blade up nice and tight. Obviously don't push down too hard, you're trying to, because otherwise that'll bend it. You are literally just trying to cut in there, but you want to do it as close to the actual main part as you can. So that one is that one out. We just do the other one at the same time. Now the only drawback with using a PVA glue for doing photo etch parts like this, or PE parts as also as it's known, is that if you knock it, it then can manoeuvre it around, and you know, there's lots of things. So you do have to be a little bit more careful because it is going to take a little bit of time to dry. I always give this a good shake because I do find it separates a little bit under different conditions. So we do that, and also you get a nice blob of it in the cap, and also it's right at the top here. So I take a cocktail stick, very straightforward, get some on the end of a cocktail stick, okay, and we're just going to dab it along all that area and just scrape it along. Okay, now I'm not going to stick it straight, I'm going to go and do the other side, because what I'm going to do is just give that a minute or two to start to go off. The reason I do that is because then it starts to bite. Probably a little bit too much on there. You don't want to use too much if you can help it. So if you have, take it off. As soon as it starts to go clear, it's time to get it in position. So we're just going to get our one that we've got here. Okay. We're just going to sit it in there for the moment. I'm going to position that in the right position. Okay. And there we go. That's that one in just like that side. And we'll do the same for the other side. We've just got a tiny bit to take off on there. Let's say using the knife it's just a little bit easier. Okay. Just remember to try and keep it flat at all times. Okay, we'll drop that one in. And as I say, the great thing with using this glue is we can position it all into position when we're happy. Just give it a little tap down. Okay, and when you're all sorted, and obviously you might get some glue squash out from the sides, so just take a cotton bud and give it a nice bit of a wipe. And we're still a little bit wet down in there, but we're not worried too much about it. Okay, there we go. So we just bring you in a bit to show you that. And there we go, we've got those situated on there. You know, for and against with using PE. Small little trouble with PE is obviously it's very flat. You get it nicely detailed, you can pick out the ones, but obviously it is flat. Where obviously other bits and pieces we'd use a wash and various things to go around to give it the depth and to give it some coloration. The coloration's all there, but it is just a little bit flat. So if you have got other bits and pieces that can go on there as well, such as you know, little switches of photo-etch ones to stick up, you can obviously do that. And obviously on this particular one, to say we've got the throttle quadrant, which is going to fit on there and go in there like that. Okay, so next we'll get the pedals in. They're just going to sit straight on top of the original set that are in there. I haven't bothered trying to sand them off and all things like that, which you can do, which are on the actual instructions, because it really isn't worth it. Because I haven't done that, if you nick off the bottom part of the pedal, there's a tiny little tab of photo-etch off the bottom of the pedals, which are parts 30 and 31 if you're using this particular zoom set here, because obviously that's what bends down and gives it something to sit on. We're not worried about that. Same thing again, just going to come in, generous bit on each one. Now these are going to be quite tricky to get in, so the best way to do it, I think, is a little technique I do. If you get a cocktail stick, wet it, and you'll find that usually the photo-etch part will stick to it just like that. So we've got it on the end of a cocktail stick now, and you should be able to come along and then just drop it on. And obviously the glue is stronger than the wetness that you've put it on there with. And you can just position it. Same again with the other one. Okay, it's going to be in. Drop that one as well. So there we go, that's the pedals in. And don't worry if the glue sort of squirts through a little bit, because it will dry totally clear. If there is too much of it, just give it a dab with a cotton bud. Wet the cotton bud first, then dab it, and it will absorb it a little bit, and away you go. That's the main cockpit area done there. We've just got a tiny one to go up on the front panel there. So we'll just do that, which is part number 3. There's my knife. So we're looking for number 3. And the good thing with photo-etch parts that you'll see, they do tend to run along in order. So on some sprues you might have number 1 in one area, number 2 might be on the other side of the sprue, but photo-etch, they do tend to run quite nicely all the way along. Okay, so this is just the last bit going on here. Same thing again. Just going to pick it up with a okay, we'll just position that with a cocktail stick here. There is a little bit too much. let that off. And there we go. Bring you in and you can see what we've done here. I know it's a bit glary under the light, so there we go. Pedals in, front panels on. We've got a little quadrant and there's a little bit of photo etch to go on top there, but I'll wait till those others are totally dry. In the meantime, we can carry on with the actual front instrument panel as well, which I'll carry on with now, and then you can join me when I'm done. There we go then, that's the little instrument panel done there. We can focus in. There's lots of photo etch parts there. There's over 20 definitely. It's a little bit still glue in where the multifunction displays are. That's because I put a little bit of gator glue over the top of them, because I know, one, it will seal it all in completely, those, and also it will dry completely clear and give it that nice sort of glassy look over the top without being too glossy. So that's that done. So there's that all in. As I say, there's lots and lots of parts, and it's overlapped in a lot of areas for them to come through. There's the actual cockpit tub, now it's drying out and everything else like that. It's looking very nice. So we've got those bits all done. Right, the other thing as well, I've spoken about them before, that is these things. These are Tamiya photo etch tool, if you like. Now this is to show you exactly what it sort of does really. This here, we've got to make a perfect right angle on a little box on this tiny little bit here. Excuse the fingers being sprayed, as you see. So all we can do, what we'll do with it, we'll just literally fold in the end, so we're just going to go up and hold it right on the edge like that, and that way we can just bend it down, and when it stops we know that's a perfect 90 degrees, just like that. Okay, and then we can bend the other half around. So if you look to the inside, you'll see the actual I don't know how well it's such a small piece really for you to see, but on the inside there is a tiny little, focus in. You see there the difference of colour. There you go, you can just about see it there. We're going to follow those lines. So basically, let me just bring you out a bit so it focuses in. There we go. We're just going to pop our tool right up to the one we made the right angle shot on. Obviously you could do it before or after. Okay, we line up the line with the side of our tweezers things here, the things. Okay, and then making sure you've got a nice firm grip. You're perfectly lined up in the right place. It's desperately trying to line it up. You can then fold it, the part over. It's a bit tricky because you need to be just slightly to the inside of that line when you fold. Let's just try another way. It's going to come in from the end. Just like that. Okay, I'm just bending up. It's actually quite a thick part, this part. It's a lot thicker than the normal ones. So we're just going to come to the outside, pull it down, just like so. Okay, let's get that on as well. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this as we've done it. Let me just bring you in. So there we go. We'll focus in and lock in a bit. There we go. That's that part actually all done and in there now, just like that. And it's quite a nice, easy and quite a fast way of doing it, just like that. So there we go, that's that sorted out. So that can be glued, that's going to go to the inside of the canopy once it's all in there. I'll get it all sort of fitted and installed in there first. I'm not going to put the stick in on the throttle quadrant just quite yet. I'm going to do that afterwards, once we know we've got it installed and it's all okay. But it's still a little bit wet, so I'm taking a bit of a gamble here. But it's just going to fit in along those grooves, just like there. Just like that. So that's quite a straightforward, but we just need all those photo etch bits and obviously the glue to dry totally before we start going in there and pushing it around and that, because it does take longer to dry, and it is the only slight drawback with using a PE glue versus a CA glue. But it's a nicer way to do it, because if you do make a mistake, and you can push them around and that, and it's not a problem at all. Okay, so we've got the air intake system put in there and glued in pretty sharp. I had to make a few little adjustments to it, but at least we're seamless, which was obviously our main concern with doing that one, but it's in there, so it now could be painted white once it's all in. We've got the side parts in there. So we've got that done. Also the cockpit section, which is sort of half gluing in there. I'm really sort of test fitting it to see if it's going to go in there. If I just bring you nice and close in, you can see what I've been up to in here. As you see, I've got the seat in there as well, which is lots of photo etch parts go on there as well. Where are you? There we go. And as you can see, we've got the actual part in there. I'll take some stills off of this as normal and I'll pop them on the website where I have a new thread going up there for obviously this build. Basically, what can you say? Straightforward, it all fits, it all goes in. Normal thing with photo etch parts, just take your time and away you go. But there we go, that's all in there. Quite nice little seat as well. So basically the next thing to do is work out the weight. 20 grams it recommends in there. There's two ways of doing it. You can either fit it and try and stick 20 grams, just pull you out a little bit. You can either stick 20 grams down here in the nose section in here, the forward fuselage, or you can pop it in the nose cone, whichever way you want to do it. If you're going to put it in the nose cone, you probably won't need as much. Let me just check the guidance. It's actually saying 30 grams on there. It is prone to being a tail sitter, so do remember to put your weight in. There is other little sort of bits and pieces as well you can do. If you actually don't put enough weight in, you can get them in at a later point. But for the main part, what you're going to do, I would weigh out 30 grams, and then between putting it in this forward fuselage area here, you can obviously slide it in underneath the seat as well as putting it some in the nose cone. So if you can only get sort of 10 grams in there, and then you can put the other sort of 20 into the nose cone, you'll be away like that. So we're going to get those bits all put in now. We're going to stuff it full of lead. As I say, it's quite nice if you can weigh it out to roughly work out how much you're going to need and things like that. It just proves to be a lot easier. The way I do it, I've said before, I've got these sheets of lead, is to literally roll them up or fold them up into cubes, and then if you take something to flatten them off a bit, just like this, and then I fix them in with a little bit of PVA and a little bit of CA glue, usually a bit of both, just to make sure it's going to work. But from my point of view, what I'm going to do is going to put one of these in like this. I'm going to come along with a little drop of CA just in there and in the back part as well, so it goes in, and then the next cube, if you can see, can then go in on top of that. Okay, another little drop. We're going to put two of these on each side. And if you wanted to make sure that all sets in there nice, give it a squirt with some kicker, just like that. Bit of a blow. And let that work its magic. So we'll do two in there, and we'll do two on the other sides, and then we can get it all put together.